her computer.
I can hear you.
Absolutely, yes. You are in charge now, right? You share your desktop. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning, classmates and professor.
Good morning.
Well, today we're going to present the novel that we chose, that is Scarlet Letter. We're going to start with the summary of this story. Well, this story is a work of historical fiction by the American author Nathaniel Hawthorne. Well, the novel is developed in the 17th century at the very beginning of the colonial period. Well, everything begins with a prelude in which an unnamed narrator explains the novel origin. This narrator is working at the Salem Custom House, which is a tax collection agency, when he discovered a beautiful scarlet letter A with a manuscript. When he lost his job in this custom house, he decided to write this story that he found in the manuscript. Well, the first scene of this novel begins with when Hester Prynne, who is the protagonist of this story, is let out of prison, carrying in her arms her daughter Pearl, as you can see in the second image in this PowerPoint presentation. A crowd of people is waiting outside, and she had to stay on a scaffold or a platform to endure public shame for her sin. Well, she was guilty of adultery, and now we're going to see this scene in this video. Well, after this, another important, in the crowd, as you can see in the first image, there is Hester Prynne with her daughter in her arms. Well, in the crowd, she recognized a familiar face. And this man is her husband, the one that you can see with the finger in his lips. He didn't want it to be recognized by the rest of the people, so he tries to make Hester to notice that he wants to be he doesn't want to reveal his identity. After this, another important character is presented. Is the man who you can see in the second image. He is Reverend Dimmesdale. He is demanded to talk to Hester when she is in the platform. He tries to convince her to tell the truth about her sin. Everybody wanted to know who was the father of Hester's daughter, but she never revealed the identity of this man. So now we're going to see another video. I don't know why the sound is not working.
Well, I think you have to share the sound.
Put it again.
Well, in that scene, Dimmesdale is asking to Hester to say the truth, to reveal the name of the father of her daughter, but she says that she doesn't want to tell the truth. Well, and that man is her husband. Well, later, Hester is back to jail with her baby, and one day her husband comes to see her because he wanted to ask her about who was the father of Pearl, her daughter. But she again doesn't reveal his name, and he also wanted to ask her to keep his identity in secret. And he told her that now his name is Roger Chillingworth. So that's the name that he creates to uncover her real identity. Later, 3 years later, Hester is let out of prison. And Maria Paz, can you mute your?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. The slide, the previous slide, please. 3 years later, as you can see there, Hester is let out of prison, and she moves to the outskirts of Boston, near to the forest. Meanwhile, Chillingworth starts working as a doctor, but he doesn't have a formal medical training. So, and one of his patients is Dimmesdale, because he has feeling a pain in his chest, and he thinks he have heart trouble. People asked Chillingworth to move in with Dimmesdale in order to be his head doctor. And when Chillingworth is living there, he begins to suspect that there exists a connection between Dimmesdale pain and Hester's crime. And now we're going to see another scene in the next slide. Well, to the next, please, the next slide. Well, one day Chillingworth discovers a curve mark in Dimmesdale's chest. This mark resembles Hester's scarlet letter because he has a letter A in his chest. I think it's the next one slide. Please, Maria Paz, can you change it? Oh, no, sorry. Keep in that one. Well, and so Chillingworth realizes that Dimmesdale is Hester's lover, and probably he is the father of Pearl. In this slide, you can see an image where Pearl is with some of the fathers of this town, because some people say that Hester wasn't a good mother for Pearl, but the girl doesn't want to live with these people. And in the second one, you can see Dimmesdale as the head doctor of Dimmesdale. So now we're going to see another scene of this novel.
Nicole?
Yes, Professor.
You need to share again, this time clicking on the box on the left. It says share sound.
Okay, Maria Paz has to do that because she's
Okay, I will.
she's
So,
she's working
yeah.
with a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Sorry
That's all
about
right. That's right.
the
Don't worry.
Where should I click?
Yes, we're missing all the information behind the
But
scenes.
where should I click? I don't know where.
Stop sharing. Now start sharing again. And on your left, there is a box, a small box. It says incluir audio del sistema. So,
Right. I will show all the videos again.
it's up to you. It's your decision, right?
I think we have time maybe to do it. Yes.
Okay, let me. Did you listen?
Nope.
Um, I don't know. Because I've been clicking the box. Ah, now I can, I think. Let me try again. But tell me if you can hear anything.
No, we can't.
But it says that I am sharing the.
We can hear the video, just not very loudly.
Now?
Are you playing the video?
I'm not sure why you can't hear anything.
That's not. But we can hear, but not very loudly.
And also, Nicole had an issue with her internet. She says that she can hear anything and it's completely frozen the Teams application.
So at this time, you have to make a decision. You can explain this, the video? Because we can hear, but very, very soft in the background.
Okay. Professor, but Nicole, I'm sorry, but Nicole is not in the presentation. She can't hear anything and she can't say anything. So it's really frozen.
Okay, so you can continue. So you can give her time to come back to the presentation, and let's see if we can make it. Hopefully, in the next minutes, maybe she can come back to continue with the presentation. Can you be in touch through WhatsApp or a phone call?
I'm talking right now.
Good.
She says that she will start her computer again and to see if it is fixed. So I will continue with the summary.
All right.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Now Chillingworth stays at this Dimsdale house because he was taking care of him, but he insists that he wants to know who is the father of Pearl, and he starts telling Chillingworth that what he has is a spiritual problem, that he has something inside of him that is tormenting him. So at one point, Chillingworth sees Dimmesdale's chest, and he has a scar of an A in his chest. So he discovers that he is Pearl's father. In that point, also Dimmesdale is really tormented by his mind, and he starts to punish himself physically and emotionally. He is consumed by guilt because he can't stand that Hester and Pearl suffer a lot, and he is just living his life. One night, Dimmesdale goes to the scaffold, and he's alone, and he starts to talk about his sins. Of course, pointing to the one he committed with Hester. In that moment, Hester and Pearl see him, and they climb the scaffold too. And there he starts telling them that he should have been with them when they were accused, when she was accused, and that he feels guilty about it. In that moment, when the three of them are together, they hold hands, and a meteor passes through the sky, and makes a letter A. And Dimmesdale, as he is a Puritan reverend, he takes everything as a sign from God, and he sees this as a confirmation of what he was thinking, that he should be the one who also carries an A. And and after that, they see Chillingworth in the scaffold. He was watching all of this, and he takes Dimmesdale with him. In this point, Hester realizes that the one who is tormenting him is Chillingworth. This is a scene from the. I don't know if you, because it. I mean, just watch it. He's saying that now he sees the reality, and Hester says that he shouldn't feel that way. And here is a ray, but actually it's a meteor. And then he says that he should have been with them 6 years ago when Pearl was a baby. Now at this point of the story, Hester is well respected in her community because she always is helping sick people and giving advice to those who are in need. And also she knows that Chillingworth is the one that is tormenting Dimmesdale. So she goes and confront Chillingworth, and she threats him that if he makes Dimmesdale suffer, she will reveal his true identity as Roger Prim, her husband. She is disgusted about Chillingworth, and she starts thinking about Dimmesdale again. So she tells him to meet at the forest, where she tells him the truth about Chillingworth, and he forgives her. And they plan on living together to Europe on a ship and get married. This is a really cute scene. She is telling him that um, it is not possible to feel that way because Chillingworth is the one that is tormenting. And he says that he doesn't want to go to Europe alone, and she tells him, "You're not going to be alone." And he gets really excited and says that they will they they will have to get married. I'm sorry that I they have. So after that, they get caught in the feeling of freedom, and Hester takes off her scarlet letter and kind of lets her hair down and stuff. But Pearl gets really angry because she doesn't recognize her mother, and also because she doesn't like this Dimmesdale. She doesn't want to be friends with him. And also Dimmesdale goes crazy because the days before him and Hester leave to Europe, he can't stand the guilt that he feels, and he wants to confess him in public. So he isolates himself to work on a sermon. The day before they had to leave, Hester talks to the ship's captain, and he tells her that Chillingworth is going with them, which makes Hester really worried. Dimmesdale also gives his sermon, which is the best sermon ever given. But when he goes out of the church, he goes to the scaffold and confesses that he is Pearl's father. And he reveals his scar. Here's another video. Chillingworth tells him to not to say anything. And he says that Hester's scarlet letter is the shadow of what they did, and that he should carry too. And he shows his scar. Remember that he had serious heart issues, so that's why he feels really bad now, and then he finally dies. In this part, he asks Pearl to give him a kiss, and now is when Pearl realizes that he is her father, and she kind of understands it. And Chester is asking him if they will meet again in heaven. But he tells her that now that he has to pay for what he did, so he goes to hell and all of that. And now he dies. After that, Chillingworth also dies, leaving a huge inheritance to Pearl. And Hester goes to Europe for a while, but then she comes back to live in her cottage. She never takes her scarlet letter off because it is now part of her identity. She finally dies, and she was buried together with Dimmesdale, and they have the scarlet letter in their grave. I don't know if Nicole is with us now. I think she's not. So I will present my part first. She said that she's opening she's opening Zoom. Okay. The narrator and the point of view. This is what I will present now. Can you listen?
Yes, we can.
The narrator is omniscient because he knows everything that the characters are feeling and what they are experiencing, even what they say when they are alone. He knows everything, every event that is going to happen or already happened. And he's a third person narrator because he talks about what other people are doing. He's not part of the story itself. And he also uses pronouns as they, her, his, all eyes. Like for example, here he says men and women were now impressed, so he knows what they were feeling. He could not recognize also. Nicole, are you? Nicole says that she can't get in.
I'm sorry, you said she can't? She cannot?
She cannot get into the application, into Teams. Her computer is really slow. Let me see if I can call her so she can explain to you.
Estoy esperando que abra Teams, ahora está abriendo.
Oye, estoy en llamada.
Ah, perdón.
¿Le podéis explicar el por qué?
¿Profesor me escucha?
Bueno,
Sí.
Está abriendo Teams en estos minutos. Mi computador se pegó en el minuto que María Paz intentó poner el audio y perdí yo el audio acá en mi computador, no sé qué pasó. Luego tuve que reiniciarlo para poder volver a tener poder tener de nuevo escuchar, porque ni siquiera podía escuchar lo que hablaban ustedes. Y ahora estoy viéndome la reunión de nuevo y voy a empezar.
ya.
Sí, ahora sí.
Don't worry. It's all right.
I will continue with my parts until Nicole is ready.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was mute. I will start again. Pearl is Hester and Dinsdale's daughter. She is their illegitimate daughter. She is 6 to 7 years old. She is 7 when her father dies. She is really wise, active, moody, and perceptive. I'm sorry, can you mute your microphones? Because I can hear what I'm saying. Okay. She's really perceptive because she can perceive things that other people doesn't. Like when she finds out the issue with her father and her mother. Here is Dinsdale. He is portrayed as Gary Oldman in the modern version of this story. He's a young Puritan reverend. He is very emotional and very intelligent. He's Pearl's father and Hester's lover. He gained fame in England and then he emigrated to America. He's intelligent, as I said, which is reflected in his sermons, which are really eloquent and persuasive. And he is very emotional, which is reflected in the reaction that he has when he feels guilty about his affair with Esther, to the point that he torments himself physically and mentally. Mistress Higgins, which is a widow who lives with Governor Bellingham. She's a witch. She goes into the forest to be with the black man, which is supposed to be the devil. And she's inspired in Anne Higgins, which was a woman who was executed because everybody thought that she was a witch. And the narrator, which we don't know his name, he never says it. He's a surveyor of the Salem Custom House. He has Puritan ancestors, and he feels really bad about it. So he wants to know more about his heritage. He's interested in religious heritage, of course, because he has Puritan ancestors. Nicole, are you here?
Yes, I'm here
Okay.
now. I have the connection again. Sorry.
Okay. I will put your slides.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to give you some facts about the biography of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Nathaniel Hawthorne was born in Salem, Massachusetts in the year 1804. He promoted transcendentalism, and I'm going to give you some information about what is transcendentalism. This was a religious and philosophical movement that was dedicated to the belief that divinity manifests itself everywhere. So, particularly in the natural world. He was an American novelist, dark romantic, and short story writer. Two of his most famous novels are The Scarlet Letter and The House of the Seven Gables. The subject of the majority of his works is America's Puritan past, as you can notice in this novel, which is the same subject. Before he wrote this novel, he was a surveyor in the Salem Custom House. And after he lost this job, he had the time to write this masterpiece. This novel, this book, was one of the first mass-produced publications in the United States, and its wide distribution made Hawthorne famous. Okay, now I'm going, the next slide, please, Maria Paz. I'm going to talk about the sociocultural facts. This story revolves around the Puritan movement. And who were the Puritans? They were a group of religious reformers who arrived in Massachusetts in the 1630s. This was a religious sect, and they were known for its intolerance of dissenting ideas and lifestyles. The Puritan also portrays the human soul under extreme pressures. Okay. In this novel, Hawthorne uses the repressive authoritarian Puritan society as an analog for humankind in general. And you can see this reflect in Hester, Dimmesdale, and Chillingworth's life, because they were part of this Puritan society, and also reflects an universal experiences during this period. Okay, now the next slide, please. Well, the setting of this story is set in Boston in the 1600s, prior to the American independence. In the prelude of this novel, the author states that when the narrator is in the custom house, he says that Hester flourished during a period between the early days of Massachusetts and the close of the 17th century. So according to this information, we can state that the setting or the year of this novel was the 1600s. During this period, many individuals or many settlers had left England because they were dissatisfied with the Anglican Church. They felt that the Anglican Church had not done enough to, so they decided to move from these lands and became the purified. And from this word, from purified, is the word that led to the term Puritans. Once they immigrated to the colonies, they were able to set up a new society in which they could make values like modesty and obedience as the central terms for the community. The author, Hawthorne, includes fairly detailed descriptions of the physical surroundings of this novel. For instance, some of the settings highlight the power of tradition, government, and the rule of law. All of these aspects significantly impact the life of Dimmesdale and Hester by punishing them for their affair, for the adultery they committed. Now I'm going to talk about the tone of this novel. Well, the tone of the Scarlet Letter mixes deep irony with sympathy towards the novel's protagonists. The narrator refers to their story as a tale of human frailty and sorrow, implying both that their unhappy ending in the inevitable results of human nature and that the story should be read with pity. In contrast, the tone used to describe the townspeople contains the same ironic as the descriptions of the narrator's neighbors. Well, about the town's elders, he says, Out of the whole human family, it would not have been easy to select persons less capable of sitting in judgment on an erring woman's heart. So the tone of the novel is also highly skeptical, often questioning events as they are being described, suggesting that the underlying themes of the story are more significant than the specifics of Hester and Dimmesdale's tale. And at the end of this story, according to what the narrator says, what matters is the moral of this novel, which says, be true, be true, be true. Well, now I'm going to move to the characters. Well, I'm going to start with the protagonist, who is Hester Prynne. She is the book's protagonist, as I said, and she wears the scarlet letter as a symbol of adultery. She is a young woman, and when she was younger, she got married an elderly scholar who is Chillingworth. And this man sent her ahead to America, and then supposedly he was going to follow her. When she was waiting for him, she had this affair with Dimmesdale, and then she gave birth to Pearl, her daughter. Hester is passionate, but she's also strong. She's a strong woman. She endures years of shame and scorn while she was guilty of adultery. She is equal in terms of intelligence and thoughtfulness to her husband and Dimmesdale, who is her lover. And she's able to make observations about her community, particularly about how they treat women during that period. Well, moving to the next character, Roger Chillingworth. He is Hester's husband, and he's much older than her. He was he is a scholar, and he uses this knowledge to disguise himself as a doctor. Chillingworth is the most malevolent character in the novel. Well, the following character is Governor Bellingham. He's a wealthy elderly gentleman, and he spends much of his time consulting with other fathers from the town. He resembles, despite of being an American, he resembles a traditional English aristocrat. Bellingham tends to strictly adhere to the rules, but he's easily swayed by Dimmesdale's eloquence. As Maria Paz said, Dimmesdale was very intelligent. Well, the next character is Reverend Mr. John Wilson. He's a stereotypical Puritan father, a literary version of a starkly painted portraits of American patriarchs. He, as a governor, he follows the community rules strictly, but he can also be swayed by Dimmesdale eloquence. Unlike Dimmesdale, his junior colleague, Wilson preaches hellfire and damnation and advocates harsh punishment of sinners. And now, I don't know if Maria Paz has to say the next.
Yes, now I'm going to talk about the things in... I'm sorry, can you mute your microphones?
Yes, okay.
Okay. The first theme is criticism to Puritanism. This is the most dominant one because the whole story is a criticism to Puritanism. We can notice through the whole story how people judge Hester under the ideology of Puritanism, how they also believe in signals from God, because when the meteor passed through the sky, people said that it was an A for angel, so they thought that it was a signal from God. And they also believe in the devil. Mistress Hibbins said that she went into the forest and she had like a night with the devil. They also did not care when Dimmesdale confessed in a sermon in the church. He said that he also was a sinner, that he also made mistakes, and he also deserved to be punished. But instead, people like admire him because they find it like, I don't know, some like he also was human and all of that. But they were so blinded because of their ideology that they did not judge him, and they did not think that he will be capable of doing something like that because he was a reverend. Um, this book also describes how ideology can destroy the happiness of a family of three people in this case. First is Hester, which was the main affected, who committed adultery and almost received the penalty for it. Also Dimmesdale, who was so consumed by the ideology that he ended up destroying himself. He punished him a lot and he ended up dying because of it. And Pearl, who grew up being isolated from other people because of her mother, and she also lost his father. The quote one refers to when Dimmesdale confessed his sin and people admired him. They said that expressions like the godly youth, the saint on earth, uh, they did but reverence him with they did but reverence him the more. And when he said that he was also a sinner. The quote two refers to something that a woman said when Hester was in the scaffold. This woman said that this woman has brought shame upon all of us and ought to die, because she was sentenced to death in the beginning. Is there not law for that? Truly there is, but in the scripture and the statute book. So they mixed a lot religion with the laws from the town. The third one refers to a description of Puritans that the narrator makes at the beginning of the story. He says that the Puritans compressed whatever mirth and public joy they deemed allowable to human infirmity. They did not express like emotions that were demeaning for them. They like compress every bit of human soul that they had. The other theme is nature. In this book, nature is in contrast to Puritanism. Puritanism is rigid and merciless, and nature is more relaxed and forgiving, is more flexible. This contrast is made clear when the narrator contrasts the black flower to refer to the prison that punishes Hester's sin with the wild red rose bush, as the narrator says. He says that it gives hope to those sentenced to death or to prison. Also, throughout the story, the forest is described as unchristianized, lawless region. For example, when Hester goes in there to reunite with Dimmesdale, and they can be together, she can let her hair down and she can take her scarlet letter off. Also, Mistress Hibbins goes there all the time. So it is kind of like an escape from Puritan society because nature gives protection and freedom to people. Here's the quote from the when Hester was getting out of prison. On one side of the portal was a wild rose bush, which might be imagined to offer their fragrance and fragile beauty to the prisoner as he went in, and to the condemned criminal as he came forth to his doom, in token that the deep heart of nature could pity and be kind to him. Another theme is wisdom through suffering. We can see in the story that some characters evolve. For example, Hester acquires wisdom and evolves as she becomes respected for being a very helpful person in the community and stop seeking her advice. Also, she becomes a more independent woman and mother. But of course, it came with a price. Dimmesdale also learns that he cannot live with a lie, and finally publicly confesses his sin, but he dies when he does it. Dimmesdale is in fact a literal reflection of this theme, because he, when he gives his last sermon, and it is the best sermon ever and very eloquent, it is because he was also a sinner, so he understood them, which means that his suffering gave him enough wisdom to create a great sermon. Here is a quote that says, "Wilt thou go with us tonight? There will be a merry company in the forest, and I will nigh promise the black man that comely Hester Prynne should make one." The other theme is female independence, which which is the most evident theme. When you read the story, you can notice this theme with no problem. In this story, Hester makes her own decisions, and she is able to take care of herself and to take care of her daughter while facing Puritan society and the judgment that she received every day, and people trying to take her daughter away and stuff. The story talks about how she faced her problems alone as a strong woman when she had nothing on her side, and managed to be respected and in a structured and rigid community. The tendency of her fate and fortunes had been to set her free. The scarlet letter was her passport into regions where other women dare not tread. This means that she got out of the model of the women who will have received her punishment and not do something with it. She learned a lot from it. The symbols of the scarlet letter are first the scarlet letter itself, which is a symbol for adultery and sin. It was the punishment given to Hester, and it symbolizes the religious system regarding punishment and judgment, which was in this case public shame. Through the story, this symbol transforms itself, and it ends up being part of Hester's identity and a symbol for her triumph over religious punishment. It says the scarlet letter was her passport into regions where other women dare not tread. These had been her teachers, and they made her strong, but thought her much amiss. The scarlet letter ceased to be a stigma and became a type of something to be sorrowed over and looked upon with awe, and yet with reverence too, because people ended up admiring her and looking up to her. The other symbol is the meteor. When Dimmesdale is in the scaffold with Hester and Pearl, they see a meteor tracing an A in the sky, and Dimmesdale interpreted it as a divine signal that he also had to wear a mark of shame. This symbolized that the Puritans believed in signals, and they were constantly looking for confirmation of their religion and what they believed in. It also represents the transfer of guilt and shame from Hester to Dimmesdale, because Hester was the first one to feel shame about it, but it is then transferred to Dimmesdale. The meteor appears soon after the three. The three take one another's hand and form a chain. In this instant, it seems as the heavens, our God is blessing the couple's union and the family. As if the universe were gazing at a scarlet tugging on his naked breast. To interpret, this quote refers to how the community interpret this meteor. Than to interpret all meteoric appearances and other natural phenomena as so many revelations from a supernatural source. The other symbol is pearl, which symbolizes like a living version of the scarlet letter. Hester even dresses them like the scarlet letter. Here in this picture, you can see how Hester dressed her in red dresses. She is a reminder of Hester's sin also, and she represents the punishment that she received for her sin. She also represents the passion that originated the sin. Here in this quote it says, "Little Pearl herself a symbol, and the connecting link between those two, between her parents. As a direct consequence of the sin, whose place was on that same dishonored bosom, the same place that the scarlet letter was, to connect her parent forever with the race and descent of mortals, and to be finally a blessed soul in heaven." The last symbol is the rosebush and the prison door. The rosebush, as I said before, is a symbol for hope. The narrator said that it symbolizes some sweet moral blossom. It also symbolizes Hester's passion and sin, and a symbol for hope for anyone who goes into prison. In this quote, he says that a wild rosebush offers their fragrance and fragile beauty to the prisoner as he went in token that the deep heart of nature could pity and be kind to him. To symbolize some sweet moral blossom or relieve the darkening close of a tale of human frailty and sorrow. The figures that we found in this story are mostly metaphors. For example, she is the scarlet letter, the black flower, and a prison. Her sin, her ignominy were the roots which she had struck into the soil. Her breast was but the softer pillow. Also similes, struggling out of her heart, like a serpent from its hole, like a ghost that revisits the familiar fireside, as a magnet attracts still feelings. An oxymoron, miserable fortune, personification. When Pearl says, the sunshine does not love you, it runs away and hides itself. The sunshine runs away and hides itself. The leaves of the trees whispered, onomatopoeia, plash and murmur, imagery So she drew her mother away, skipping, dancing, and frisking fantastically, which is a description for Pearl running through the cemetery. And this was our presentation. We hope you like it. We also wanted to show you the videos, which were really interesting. But you know, issues with
Yes, I'm really
everything.
sorry about it.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for your presentation. Now the discussion is open for everyone to interact. Nicole,
Yes.
could you explain a little bit more about the evolution of the main character, the evolution of Hester Prynne, and also the evolution of the scarlet letter as a symbol, please?
Okay. Well, at the beginning of the novel, Hester Prynne was like feeling very guilty of her sin, but she also exposed herself very strong because he nobody could convince her to tell the truth. She only did it when she felt the right moment to do it and to the right person who was the father of Pearl. Well, everybody start to see her like an adulterer, obviously, and people say that her daughter was like she wasn't. I mean, Hester wasn't a good mother for her, and as Maria Paz said, Pearl represents in some way um, the adultery that her mother committed, and how this relation between Dimmesdale and Hester was happening during this novel. Um, After some years, Hester was very good with the townspeople, and people start seeing her with different eyes. They thought that she was a good person because she was very helpful with the people. She was always, I mean, helping people who needed or making clothes for them. So they changed this vision they have for her. And at the moment when Dimsdale is able to say the truth in the platform, I think that in that moment, maybe people didn't see her as the only adulterer, as the only one who was guilty for this sin. And well, she always wanted to wear the scarlet letter at the end of the story, even when she was old. And I think that this letter was part of her life and maybe teaches her everything about how to be and how to be with the rest of the people. And I don't know what else to say, Professor.
Can I say something?
Yes, Maria.
Yeah, of course.
The Scarlet Letter was a symbol first for Hester to be ashamed of, because the purpose of it was public shame. So all people in the community know that she committed adultery. But this symbol evolved to be something that was part of her identity. It was a symbol for how strong Hester was, because she was able to manage all this judgment and punishment that she received, and she turned it into something good, something to be looked up to.
Yeah, like at the end, she was like proud of having this letter, so she's still using it until she died. She passed away.
Right, and Maria Paz, in your personal opinion, does Hawthorne condemn or condone adultery?
Um, I mean, the narrator always has like a very strong opinion about it, about all the events that are happening, but he never makes like I don't know if he makes like a judgment about what Hester made, but he made a judgment about the Puritans. So I think that he does condemn like the punishment that the Puritans were given to her, because he was like he had like an opinion related to the nature, um, because it is like of human nature to fall in love. So he's like he says that Puritans had like this sort of notion that uh, people who committed adultery had to be punished, but he criticized this ideology. So I think he doesn't condemn this adultery, this sin that Hester made, but he also never says like what she did was okay. It was good.
All right, thank you so much. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
I wanted to say something. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Very little comment is that the fact that this character chose to wear the scarlet letter in spite of it being a symbol of public shame. It kind of reminded me of Tyrion Lannister when he says that his weakness, that is being a dwarf, he uses it as an armor. He makes that weakness his own strength, so nobody can hurt him through the fact that he is a dwarf.
Wonderful example. It's real strength when someone turns a symbol that is in the first place used to criticize or diminish the bearer, and then the accused person or the victim decides to own the symbol and finally turns the symbol into strength for the original victim. So that's something that is part of Hester's evolution in the way, not only because the community changed her perception toward her, but also because she decides to empower herself, and even though she was ostracized, she was isolated from the community. She kept her personal conviction that she was going to raise her daughter herself, and eventually the community had to change somehow, right, towards her.
Yes, as I said before, she turned the symbol into part of her identity, and she was I don't know if she was proud of it, but the book says that it became something to be looked upon. It became a symbol of being strong, and to it was like the triumph over the religious punishment. It was like a medal.
Miguel is making a comment in the chat.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the comment because there were so many of them. I didn't realize that. Yes, it's sort of a symbol, but can you mute your microphones, please? Because
Sorry.
I hear myself. Um, I think it wasn't like an icon because that is like a symbol for many people, but it was like Hester like turn around the meaning of her symbol. It was supposed to be something to be ashamed of, and it ended up being her identity, and also the identity of themselves. Let's remember that in their graves there is the symbol still of the scarlet letter.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. Because of the time, we're going to have to finish your book report now. Congratulations again for a lot of information. I think you had a wonderful visual support. I think the technical difficulties are part of the process, so you don't need to be concerned about that.
Okay, Professor.
Um,
Sorry.
mhm. As a
I think
yeah, as a general comment, always remember this is for everyone, right? To minimize the meeting box that it's on the top right corner in this time, because when you're showing a presentation, that black box sometimes hides a section of the presentation, right?
oh, I'm
You can
so
minimize
sorry.
it, and know that it's a general comment, and also. At some point, if you are giving a presentation in groups, at least one of you keep track of the um, chat room. And also, there are two small icons representing two people, which says show participants. Because people, the other icon, raise your hand. Some people may have questions or comments. So when you are giving your book report, you are actually teaching, right? Then therefore you have to keep an eye on that symbol. Okay, there, raise your hand, so you can interact at the same time you are speaking with the rest of the audience. Okay, this is a general comment. Very complete presentation, including all the requirements. So I really thank you again. And unfortunately, we don't have much time. There's another book report, I understand. I don't know if someone can confirm that information.
Yes, it is.
All right, then. So the next group is in charge. Thank you very much, Nicole and Maria Paz, for your
Thank you,
book
Professor.
report.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, so now we'll be waiting for the next group to give their book report. Probably in the meantime, you can go and grab a coffee, or you can take this as a bathroom break. Meanwhile, the other group gets ready. Oh, they are right here. Wonderful.
Yes, but if you want to give us a break,
I think it's appropriate for for a 3 to 5 minute break because of concentration. It would be better.
Great. Let's do that. Let's do that. Right. 5 minute break.
I'm gonna stay here preparing the presentation. Just